Okay guys, you have turned in your worksheets. Hopefully you've seen the answers to the worksheets, so you kind of understand what you did right or did wrong, and now you've arrived at the worksheet videos with your completed worksheets, and you understand what you've done. So we're going to go over some of the questions on the worksheets, and hopefully that will clear up any issues you may be having. And so self-test 34 starts out with compute the length of stay for the following patients. Assume that these dates are in the same year and a non-leap year for where you don't see years listed. And so these are pretty self-explanatory, right? And I listed this out on the assignment as well, how many days and how I calculated that, so hopefully you were able to see that. But I'm going to hit a couple of high spots that I know sometimes are problematic. Number one, following that rule that if a patient is admitted and discharged within the same day, we're going to give them 1 day of service, like you would if they were admitted one day and discharged the next. So number one can sometimes be problematic for students if they don't remember the rule. And then number 10, oddly, is problematic because you have an extra year in there. You start in 95 and finish in 97. And so if your answer was off by 365 days, you missed 1996. And so the other things that might be happening if you are a day off here and there, remember, I'm not subtracting. If you're like, wait a minute, Heather, my days are different than yours, but you still got the right answer, if you're doing the subtraction, your write out is going to look a little different than what I have because, you know, guys, I'm physically counting the days. All right, so let's go to self-test 35, number one, and unfortunately, all of your information is on this page, and you have to see the next page for what you're supposed to do. So it asks for the average length of stay for adults and children, and we know it's discharge days to discharges. So I'm going to take the number of discharge days, grab that, the number of discharges, and the math is 7 days. Average length of stay for newborns, same way you're going to set it up. You're going to follow that formula. Let's see here. The average length of stay for newborns is on page 79, and it's total newborn discharge days to total newborn discharges. And you're going to come back over to your table of information and grab discharge days to discharges, and you should come up with 3 days. And this was a where applicable. Take it to 2 decimal places. Average length of stay for all hospitalized patients, you had to add adults and children and newborn together, which, you know, we normally keep them separately, but this question asked us to do that. So when you add 1001 and 108, you get 1109, and 143 plus 36 is 179. So that's how I've set it up for 6.20 days. All right, so number 2, you've got November data, and that November data is bed bassinet count for adult and children and newborns, admissions, discharges, inpatient service days, and discharge days. I'm having trouble with discharge today. I'm saying it too fast, evidently. 2A asks for the average length of stay for adults and children for November, and that is 8.06 days, and the reason being is that you're taking the discharge days to the number of discharges, and that's how I have it set up. And once you do the math, it's 8.06 days. Average length of stay for newborns, we're going to follow that formula, discharge days to discharges for 2.21 days. Number 3, you're given one of those patient lists again. You're used to seeing that, but what you weren't given were the days of stay. So you'll see how I'm not entirely sure how you organized yourself on your worksheet, but the easiest thing to do, you'll see I've got like circles and squiggles because you get down here and it's asking for certain things, but it wants the average length of stay for June the 10th, and you're not given any of that information, so you have to find out what those days are. So check yourself by the number of days, because if you don't get these days correct, then the rest of this will be incorrect. So for medical, we have admission on 5/16, discharge 6/10 for 25 days. 5/31 to 6/10 for 10 days. So hopefully that makes sense. 6/6 to 6/10, 4 days, and then so on down through here. That's how I got the days of stay. When you add up all these days of stay, you should come up with a total of 106. And then the total number of discharges, there are 10 patients listed here. So that's where I got the 10. And once you do the math, 10.6 days. So you had to do a little problem solving to be able to get these done, and hopefully that worked out for you. Then it's just for B, C, and D, the average length of stay based on the categories of service you see here. So to kind of keep myself organized, I left medical alone, I circled surgical, and I gave OB a couple squiggles. So we know that when you pull out all of the medicine patients, or the medical patients, all of these, 72 days, 72 discharge days. How many discharges? Well, out of the 10 total, only 5 of them were medicine patients. So that's where I got the 5, 14.40 days. Average length of stay for surgical patients, same thing, y'all. 1, 2, 3 surgical patients. When you add up their days of stay, you should have come up with 29. There are 3 of them, so we're going to divide by 3 for 9.67 days. On D, OB patients. We've got 2 OB patients. When you add their total days of stay together, 5, divide by 2 for 2.50 days. Okie dokie. Excuse me for that cough. Hopefully that wasn't loud. Okie dokie. So for February statistics, you're going to see that I've made myself a lot of little lines and things because if I don't organize myself when I first take a look at it, sometimes I get confused. So if you found yourself with different answers, always spend the extra time looking in the table to see if you can get yourself organized. So one of the first things I noticed is that we've got live discharges here. So I know I need the deaths for the total number of discharges. So to remind myself, I just added a plus and I drew me a bracket that says for the total number of discharges, I need to add these 2 columns together. I also know that they're going to ask me for adult and children, and newborn is separate, so I drew myself a line so I wouldn't accidentally go pick up the newborn information. Okay, so that's what you're looking at, what I've done up here. So average length of stay for adults and children, you need the total number of discharges the total number of discharge days to the total number of discharges. And so minus newborns, these are the numbers on how you set it up, 2884 over 571 for 5.05 days. Average length of stay for medicine patients, you're going to pull the discharge days to discharges. So if I'm adding 303 plus 6, that's how I got 309. So discharge days to total discharges, 303 plus 6 equals 309. Everybody got that? And when you calculate that out, it's 4.91 days. And so for the rest of these, surgical, OB, peds, newborns, check, if you missed those, check your bottom number, and did you come back and have the right number, because you either didn't add the deaths or you did add the deaths. So key things that students typically miss. And so the setup is always the same. I'm taking the discharge days for my top number, and then my bottom number is the total number of discharges. So 124 plus 3 equals 127. And so you can check yourselves the rest of the way through that, knowing that if you missed it, the most problematic area is this bottom number because you probably didn't get the deaths. All right, so if we're looking at number 5 on quarterly statistics, you'll also see I did some marking up of it ahead of time. I broke them into quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4 because that's how I asked you to record it on your worksheet when you turned it in. So that's why you see the 1, 2, 3, and 4 written up at the top. For me, you may have done something similar. So average length of stay for the entire year required you to add up all of the discharge days that you find in the column. And hopefully when you added those up, it's written real small, but hopefully you can see it, 36,508, because you weren't given a total column. So you have to go grab every column of discharge days and add it together. Then you had to do the same thing for the discharges. All of these you had to add up, and once you added them up, hopefully you came up with 7289. And so when you carry it out to two places, you've got 5.01. Now B and C, the way that it's written, I have the months written here, but the way that this is written and the way that I have you taking it out to two places past the decimal, there are double answers, and that's okay. So you've got July through September. Oh, I forgot to write April through June here. April through June. July through September, and then January through March, and October through December. And I'm fully aware that if I hadn't have had you take these out two places past the decimal, these answers would have been very different. But the way that I asked you to calculate it, you ended up with two answers per question, and that's fine. And you can see how I got the calculations here, right? So the quarter with the lowest average length of stay and the highest, you had to figure out the length of stay for all of the quarters, and you set them up discharge days to discharges. So January, we'll work this one through March, you would have had 8955 divided by, so you've got your number of discharge days, divided by 1785. For 5.02 as your final answer. Okay, so hopefully, I mean, these were short exercises. This is, 12, 13-minute video. But hopefully, you were able to see some of the pitfalls that you may have fallen into, like not remembering a rule, forgetting a year, not counting these correctly, or over here not remembering to add the deaths in because this says discharges live. So those are the commonly computed errors, and I hope this was helpful. I'll see y'all next time.